There is an image from Geneva that has quietly become one of the most revealing photographs of Meghan Markle's post-royal career. She is standing at a podium in a public square outside the United Nations headquarters in Switzerland, delivering a speech about one of the most urgent issues facing children in the modern world. And behind her, visible to anyone watching the footage, a woman on a bicycle rides past without slowing down. A man photographs something happening entirely elsewhere. Two people cross the street mid-sentence without so much as a glance in her direction. The barriers that had been erected to manage the expected crowd stand largely empty. The seats that had been arranged for an audience hold only a handful of people. This is the image that tells the story of where Meghan Markle stands in the spring of 2026. Not the carefully composed Instagram posts. Not the Giorgio Armani suit. Not the Princess Diana watch on her wrist. The woman on the bicycle, riding past without stopping. Welcome back. Today we are going deep on what happened in Geneva, why Meghan's message failed to land despite a genuinely important cause, why the contradictions at the heart of her public persona have become impossible to ignore, and why the same week that Meghan stood in an empty Swiss square, Catherine, Princess of Wales, was drawing enormous crowds in Italy and receiving one of that country's most prestigious civic honors. The contrast between these two women, playing out simultaneously on opposite sides of Europe, tells you almost everything you need to know about the difference between a brand and a legacy. Let us start with the speech. Because in one respect, credit must be given where it is due. The speech Meghan delivered at the Lost Screen Memorial was focused, on theme, and notably free of the personal digressions and self-referential detours that have undermined her public appearances in the past. She spoke about children being shaped by systems designed to capture attention at absolutely any cost. She talked about relentless algorithms pushing harmful content toward young people who were not seeking it out. She invoked powerful imagery. We did not ask parents to build their own seatbelts, she said. We did not ask children to test unsafe medicine. We did not shrug at defective toys and call it the price of progress. The rhetoric was clean and purposeful. The cause, 50 families standing in that square, each one representing a child whose death had been linked to online harm, is as real and as urgent as any cause on the global stage. And yet the speech did not land. Not with the crowd in Geneva, which was sparse almost beyond comprehension for an event of this stated significance. Not with the wider public watching online. Not with the commentators and journalists who covered the appearance. The cause was real. The speech was competent. And it landed nowhere. The question worth asking is why. The answer has a name, and that name is credibility. Because a message, however important, is only as powerful as the messenger who delivers it. And Meghan Markle, in the spring of 2026, is carrying a credibility deficit that no amount of professional speech preparation can simply train away. The public has a memory. And the memory it has of Meghan Markle is specific, detailed, and deeply at odds with the persona she was presenting in Geneva. The evening before she flew to Switzerland to tell the world that children must be protected from social media, Meghan posted a photograph on Instagram. A photograph of her 4-year-old daughter Lilibet, crouched in front of a closet packed with designer clothing worth close to $250,000. The caption was "Mama's Little Helper." The platform was Instagram, the same platform, run by the same company, that Harry had publicly described as being run by evil and wicked people just 7 months earlier. The image was seen by over 4 million followers before Meghan boarded her flight to Geneva. This is not a minor inconsistency. This is the kind of contradiction that, once seen, cannot be unseen. She told the world to look away from the screen from a post she had just told the world to look at. The child whose image she used to warm the audience for a speech about protecting children from social media exposure is the same child she has repeatedly featured in content designed to drive engagement, build brand recognition, and attract commercial attention to her lifestyle enterprise. The face is hidden. The brand operation is not. And the Geneva contradiction does not exist in isolation. It sits alongside a pattern that the public has been quietly cataloging for years. This is the same person who positioned herself as an advocate for ethical business practices and invested in a clothing collective that was later exposed to be paying female workers in Rwanda the equivalent of 82 pence for an 8-hour working day. The same person who built an entire media strategy around demanding privacy for her children and simultaneously gave Netflix exclusive photographs and footage of those children to promote her documentary series. The same person who has spoken repeatedly about the harm done by bullying online while the staff members she worked with most closely have described a workplace environment that drove people to tears. Right message, wrong messenger, these 4 words have become the unavoidable verdict on Meghan's Geneva appearance, and they are not unfair. There is also a substantive criticism to be made of the speech itself that goes beyond the messenger problem. Meghan's framing of the social media harm issue, while emotionally compelling, stops consistently short of the complexity the subject demands. She stated that the harms children face online are not the fault of the child nor the parent, a line that, in the context of grieving families who have spent years blaming themselves, carries real compassion. But as a policy position, it removes parental accountability from an equation where it genuinely belongs. There are parental controls. There are age restrictions. There are tools available to families right now that can meaningfully limit children's exposure to harmful content. A campaign that frames the problem as entirely systemic, entirely the responsibility of platforms and governments, while never once mentioning the role that parents can and must play, is not a complete picture. It is a partial one. And partial pictures, however well-intentioned, do not produce complete solutions. Meghan's speeches on complex issues tend to remain at the level of the powerful rhetorical gesture, "We need to do better, the world must act again, children deserve to be safe by design." These are not wrong statements. But they are also not policy. They are not the kind of informed, specific, deeply researched advocacy that moves institutions and changes laws. They are the vocabulary of celebrity activism, which speaks to the emotional register of an issue without necessarily illuminating the path forward. And when the celebrity delivering them is someone whose own public behavior directly contradicts the message, the gap between the rhetoric and the reality becomes the story. Now let us talk about Catherine. Because the contrast between what was happening in Geneva and what was happening simultaneously in Italy is almost too stark to be coincidental, and yet it was entirely coincidental, which makes it even more revealing. While Meghan stood in a largely empty Swiss square watching cyclists ride past her mid-speech, Catherine, Princess of Wales, was completing a 2-day trip to Rio Maggiore in northern Italy, where she was received with a kind of genuine warmth and public enthusiasm that no amount of media training can manufacture. She received the Primo Tricolor Civic Honor from the mayor, recognition of real work done in real communities over real time. The square was full. The people who came to see her came because they wanted to, not because they had been directed there by a communications operation. The contrast between these two women has become one of the defining stories of the post-Megxit royal landscape. And the reasons for it go deeper than personal popularity or media coverage or the advantages of royal title. They go to something more fundamental about how each woman has approached public life and what each one appears to be genuinely motivated by. Catherine has maintained a consistency of image and purpose over more than a decade of public life that is, in retrospect, remarkable. She has not reinvented herself repeatedly. She has not pivoted from one identity to another as each previous version failed to achieve the desired result. She was not, one year, the anti-establishment truth-teller, and the next year the Hollywood power player, and the year after that the Montecito lifestyle influencer selling jam and candles, and the year after that the concerned humanitarian standing outside the United Nations. She has been, consistently and without drama, a working member of the royal family who shows up, does the work, and lets the work speak for itself. There is something that Catherine understood about public life that Meghan has never quite grasped. Restraint creates value. Absence creates interest. The public's attention is not a resource that can be extracted indefinitely through constant visibility. It is something that must be carefully managed, occasionally withheld, allowed to build naturally through genuine action rather than strategic positioning. When Catherine was absent from public life during her cancer treatment, the internet did not move on. It became consumed with concern, with speculation, with a depth of emotional investment that no press release or Instagram campaign could have generated. The invisibility created a hunger. The return created a moment. And the authenticity of the journey, the vulnerability of a young woman facing serious illness while raising 3 children and preparing to one day be queen, created a bond with the public that is essentially unbreakable. Meghan has never been invisible long enough to be missed. She has never been quiet long enough for the public to wonder what she is thinking. She has never stepped back far enough from the commercial operation to allow the human being behind it to become the story. And so the public, which is sophisticated in the ways it engages with celebrity and royalty, has come to see her as exactly what she presents herself as, a brand. A strategy. A very well-resourced attempt to achieve influence and relevance through sheer volume of presence. And brands, however well-funded, do not inspire the kind of loyalty that genuine human connection creates. The deepest problem with Meghan's Geneva appearance, deeper than the empty seats, deeper than the bicycle woman, deeper than the Instagram contradiction, is that it felt like a move in a game rather than an expression of genuine conviction. The cause is real. The families are real. But the sense that this particular messenger arrived at this particular podium as part of a calculated rebranding exercise, rather than because she has spent years doing the unglamorous, invisible work of genuine advocacy, was impossible to fully shake. Catherine received a civic honor in Italy this week for work she has done quietly, consistently, and without requiring a camera crew to validate it. That is the difference. Not media coverage. Not favorable press. Not the advantages of title or position. The difference is that one woman appears to have chosen public life as a vehicle for service, and the other appears to have chosen service as a vehicle for public life. The public, watching both from a distance, has worked out which is which. And the woman on the bicycle, riding past the Geneva podium without stopping, has delivered her verdict. If this video gave you something to think about, please hit that like button right now. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who are following this story closely. Subscribe if you have not already, and ring that notification bell so you never miss our next video. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you in the next one.